G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. I feel like having a bit of a rant about the war against civilization. Or maybe it's the war against society, the war against things that make us angry. In this case, I'm not thinking of the sort of war where you get a whole bunch of people to help you have the war. I'm thinking about the solo combat warrior temper tantrum. The sort of bullshit that's been going on the last week or two. We had this siege in Martin Place in Sydney, where a bloke, I'm not going to name names here, but I'm going to talk about the principal characters. So if anybody's got any deep sensibilities about the issues at stake in this and a few other cases, just switch off now, because I'm going to analyse from my perspective. From the perspective of a pacifist and a greenie and a vegetarian living on an endangered species sanctuary, from the perspective of somebody who spent 10 years as an atheist, somebody who used to be a captain of the rifle team, somebody who got his first 15-inch Bowie knife when he was 6 years old. I understand the mindset of people who think that violence is okay when they choose to employ violence, right? I'm no longer one of those people. I think if I have a violent impulse, it means that I'm wrong, and I should sit on my hands and await further developments. In this particular case, the Martin Place siege, as they call it, against a background of Islamophobia in the community, against a background of the Islamic State in Levant requesting people who supported them to pick up whatever weapon came to hand, be it a brick or a club or a firearm or a knife or a motor vehicle, and just go out and kill people, generate chaos in the society, demonstrate that the government of the Western democracies is unable to provide a safe environment. That's what ISIL was asking people to do. Against that background, we have an individual who once upon a time back in Iran was a Shiite or he was a Sunni. Either which way, he changed his religious polarity from Shiite to Sunni or Sunni to Shiite. Therefore, he was getting persecuted in Iran, thus and because he came away to Australia as a refugee and was granted refugee status. In Australia, he tried to resume his clerical status and got himself a nickname of the Fake Sheikh. He decided that anybody who made war against Muslims was obviously a wicked, evil infidel. So to make himself feel better about his relationship with God, he took to sending poison pen letters to the parents of people who'd been killed in the Australian Armed Forces fighting in Afghanistan. Now, that's not a very nice thing to do. It's not a very charitable thing to do. It's not a very kind thing to do. It's difficult to see how that is a moral or an ethical thing, but, you know, I'm sure there were people who had friends killed in the Second World War who would have dearly loved to have sent poison pen letters to the parents of the people who were killed on the army on the opposite side. And that's kind of how he saw his situation. He was against anybody who fought against any Muslim country. So he acquired a shotgun. Nobody knows how he acquired a shotgun. A pump-action shotgun has not been legal in Australia since Johnny Howard banned any shotgun that's capable of carrying more than 2 rounds. Same time he banned all semi-automatics in long arms. Same time he banned all bolt-action weapons which have more than a 5-round magazine. So this bloke got a hold of a shotgun. Because he was having custody disputes with his missus, for some reason, his girlfriend killed his missus, and he was on bail on a charge of accessory to murder. The girlfriend's on charges of murder. He's also charged with 60-something accounts, or 60 counts, of sexual abuse which somehow relates to his particular method of practicing his religion. So he goes and he captures a coffee shop across the road from a television station because, what better way to get his cause some publicity? And instead of killing people immediately, even though he put up a black flag with Arabic writing on it, which some people said was an ISIL flag, and other people said it's not an ISIL flag, he did not commence to kill hostages. He talked to the police all day. He was so uninterested in commencing to shoot people that when 5 of his hostages, he had 17 of them, when 5 of them ran away, he didn't shoot anybody in reprisals. He just kept talking to the negotiators, telling them how much he wanted to get the Prime Minister on the line so he could expose the Prime Minister to whatever rant he might have had in the sure and certain knowledge in his head that once the Prime Minister heard the pearls of wisdom dribbling from his lips, then the Prime Minister would become convinced and everything would be fine. So, at around about 2 o'clock in the morning, he was falling asleep. And 2 more of his hostages ran away. And they apparently told the police outside, he's dozing off. Because the people who were observing with binoculars, they saw the police outside the coffee shop get all stirred up, appeared to be ready to go in there. And then the police outside the coffee shop heard gunshots inside the coffee shop. So they felt they had no choice but to go in with all guns blazing. There was a fusillade of gunfire, 30 or 40 seconds worth, fully automatic, mixed with stun grenades. And the next day, one of the first pieces of information to come out from the hostages who survived being inside was that the coffee shop manager should be regarded as a great hero because he wrestled with the gunman trying to disarm him. I've got to say, as somebody who has owned a shotgun, one of the best methods I can think of getting yourself shot is to grab a hold of the shotgun of somebody who is holding it loaded while they're half asleep. As you pull the muzzle towards you, it'll tighten their finger on the trigger. Bang! What did the police think? Oh, the bad man's executing the hostages. Quick, in with the machine guns. So what happened then is kind of a little bit of a conjecture because we haven't been officially told, but we have been unofficially told that the lady barrister was a great hero because she stood between the gunfire coming in through the open doorway and the 2 pregnant women. We're told that 3 other women were shot by police. Well, I'm sorry, we were told that 3 other people were shot, and we've not been told who shot them. And the person who won't tell us who shot them is a bloke called Commissioner Scipione. The same Commissioner Scipione who at lunchtime the day after Billy Cruz, a probationary detective constable at the time, posthumously promoted to detective constable, Billy Cruz was shot in the back of the head by his own boss at 20 feet range while they were gunfighting at night time in T-shirts because they didn't think that the person who they were serving a warrant on had a gun. 9 o'clock at night, Billy was shot in the back of the head by his boss. Midday the next day, what does Commissioner Scipione say? It's an offensive question to even suggest that an officer could be shot and killed by another police officer. So when Scipione tells us that he can't disclose who shot the women, it means he doesn't want to disclose who shot the women. Yeah, sure, the police might have shot the gunman, but there was collateral damage, wasn't there? It would have been a lot better if the coffee shop manager had sat down and waited for the police to conduct whatever they had in mind, allowing for the fact that they had been told the gunman was half asleep. So we were treated to the spectacle of politicians telling us that it was obviously terrorism, obviously ISIL related. Not as such, no, he wasn't shooting hostages as soon as he got them. He was embarking on some crazy-ass hostage-taking political campaign. Then we were told that, oh, he was mad. Oh, just mad, obviously mad. No, he wasn't mad, because as soon as they started saying he was mad, then every bloody psychiatrist and psychologist in the country stood up and said, oh, no, don't demonise the mentally ill. What's your evidence that he was mad? Oh, well, he did the old little... No, that's not the act of a madman. That's the act of an angry man, a frustrated man. And then his lawyer, the bloke who had been defending him on the letters charges, or maybe the bloke who was still defending him on the sexual assault charges, he poked his head up and said, oh, well, actually, I happened to bump into him on his way to the coffee shop, And he was calm and he was cool and he was collected and he was not agitated and he wasn't upset and he didn't say anything out of turn and he certainly was not mad, not mentally ill, did not have a personality disorder. What he had was an extreme political frustration. He decided there was no other way to get his point across but to start pointing guns. And then what happens within days? Some woman in her 30s decides to take up her cutlery and chop up 8 children, aged 2 to 14. 7 of them are own kids. Now that's exactly what ISIL wants people to do. That's exactly what's happening in France. One bloke got in a car and drove into 9 different crowds of pedestrians. Somebody else walked into a cop shop and started stabbing the gendarmerie. They both got shot. But that's what ISIL wants them to do. Trouble is, the woman in Cairns, the one who killed 8 children, don't think she was a Muslim and she had nothing to do with ISIS. She just had a bloody temper tantrum. From what I can see, we have reached the point where the discontented are starting to fulminate. They are popping off like kernels of popcorn in a hot saucepan, and nobody actually knows which one's going to go off next. And that means that it really doesn't matter how many police you have in uniforms, in flak jackets, armed to the teeth, patrolling all of the street corners and bridges and gasometers, that's the word. You can't actually stop a petrochemical powered civilization from going bananas if there are sufficient discontented, cranky people who've got an early high school understanding of chemistry. They can all go down to the camping shop and buy themselves an LP gas bottle and a box of matches and a packet of candles, and they can start planting blevies all over the fucking country. Any country in the world. By luck, most of these people managed to get it wrong. But we had a fella in town here a couple of years ago, had a temper tantrum, filled his car with petrol, poured petrol all over his head, sat inside the car with the windows wound up all night, surrounded by the fire brigade, flicking his cigarette lighter. And he had so much petrol mixed with his air that he couldn't get anything to light. Eventually, wound down the windows and let some air into the place, tried it again, he got very badly burned. Violence is never a correct option. It is always an option. You can, if you want to, choose that option, and then you will have to wear the consequences. At the moment, society is well enough organised that there's enough special weapons and tactics squads that they will probably turn up and they will probably lay siege to you and they will probably shoot you before you get to court. I do not believe that anybody who has chosen violence has, in the long run, achieved their ends since about the American Civil War. Was World War I the war to end all wars? Did the Grand Alliance in World War II, did it actually stop ethnic cleansing and genocide and fascism? Did it? Did America stop North Korea from being a threat to the South? Did America stop the dominoes from becoming communist in Vietnam? Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq again, ISIL. Is anybody winning from any of this violence? All they're doing is tearing down the structure and fabric and infrastructure of the society they live in. And that society's already torn down the biosphere, so we can't go back to living like simple primitive people in the Holocene. It seems like the war against society is going to be conducted by individual nutters who tear the place down around their own feet because they've got the shits about something and they can't explain it any other way. They just want to go bang! If you want to be on the winning team, then when trouble starts, be somewhere else entirely. Ciao.